All right, kia ora everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Sustainable Business Network's You Are What You Wear fashion event tonight. So happy Friday. Congratulations to you all for getting to week 5 of lockdown. We acknowledge that it is a really hard time for everyone at the moment, so we hope you're all staying safe, happy and healthy through these uncertain times. However, we're here tonight to talk about fashion and the fashion industry, something that's a huge passion of mine and one that I'm really looking forward to hearing the discussions we have later on this evening. So I encourage you to grab a drink, sit back, relax, enjoy the presentations, and then hopefully you can submit some questions and hopefully some of those get answered a bit later on. But before we get into it, I'd just like to introduce myself. My name is Holly Leach and I work at the Sustainable Business Network in the Projects and Advisory team. The Sustainable Business Network is New Zealand's largest and longest standing sustainable business organisation. And our network includes over 600 organisations throughout New Zealand and across our diverse industries. The Projects and Advisory team specifically is focused on delivering impactful work that aims to redesign our current environmentally degrading and socially unjust systems. A big part of our work is looking at the circular economy and how we transition for New Zealand. So for those of you that don't know, the circular economy is about looking at how we move away from a take, make, waste model to one that has little impact on our environment. In a circular economy, resources are never left to become waste. Products are designed as cycles of production and reproduction and follows a make, use, return flow. So we have a number of projects that sit under our circular economy work, and one of which is our product stewardship project, which is relevant for our event tonight. So product stewardship is a vital step in our transition to a circular economy. It's when companies take responsibility for reducing a product's environmental impact and looking at how we can avoid wasteful products completely. So SBN really wants to increase the number of businesses offering product stewardship schemes. So examples of what that could look like in the fashion industry is when brands could offer a repair service to extend a piece of clothing's life, or when a consumer can return a piece of clothing when they're done with it, so the materials can be repurposed into other things. So product stewardship schemes help solve our waste issue and they enable businesses to capture valuable resources. Side note, we've created an awesome product stewardship resource which is free to access for anyone, so check that out on our website if you're interested. But yeah, if you're interested in our SBN's circular economy work or our product stewardship work, please do get in touch with myself. My email is holly@sustainable.org.nz. But we're here to talk about the textile and fashion industry specifically, an industry that's traditionally extremely wasteful and polluting. The Ellen MacArthur Foundation state that 1 truckload of clothing is burned or landfilled every second. So it's a major issue and one that we all need to address. But there are a number of fantastic fashion brands out there doing great things in regards to sustainability, and we're very lucky to have a couple of those here tonight to present to you. So let's kick things off. I would now like to introduce our wonderful MC, Jacinta Fitzgerald. Jacinta is the founder of Make Good, a fashion consultancy, and has worked with brands such as Koto, Project Just, Mindful Fashion New Zealand, Belly and Content, and on projects ranging from strategic planning to circular design strategies. And I know she's a big advocate for product stewardship too. So handing it over to you, Jacinta, welcome. Thank you so much for agreeing to take part tonight. We really appreciate it. Yeah, introduce yourself and our other panelists and let's get into it. Thank you.
Thanks, Holly. Hi, everybody. I'm Jacinta. I'm delighted to be here tonight to talk to you all about the state of the fashion industry, why we need to reset and what the future might look like. You're also going to hear from Meggie Hewlett, founder and designer of Meggie Marilyn, stylist and vintage clothing curator Angela Means, and Kate Hall, fashion activist from Ethically Kate. We are each going to share our perspectives with you, and then we're going to open up for a Q&A for the final part of the event. So I encourage you to please put your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. And if it's for a specific person, please also make a note of that. This is also the best way to communicate with us as we go through the event in case there's any issues that come up that you want to alert us to. So make use of the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. So, I do want to take a minute before I get started to acknowledge, as Holly said, the current global situation that we're in. It's really unsettling and uncertain for all of us. And while we planned this event months ago before the COVID-19 pandemic and economic crisis began, it's clear now that a sustainable industry is more important than ever. So through Make Good, I work with clothing brands and retailers on sustainability. But I started out as a designer and have always loved the creativity and craft of clothing. It was during my years working in the industry, actually on a trip to a factory in Guangzhou in the heart of China's manufacturing centre, that I woke up to the fact that I was part of a huge global issue created by fast and cheap clothes. For me now, fashion is an opportunity to change the world for the better. Fashion is our chosen skin. On an individual level, it represents how we feel about ourselves and what we want to tell the world, but it's also a complex and fragmented system that spans the globe. If you wear clothes, these issues actually affect you. As you can see, the industry is worth approximately 2.4 trillion US dollars and produces more than 100 billion garments every year. It's also an industry of extremes with enormous wealth disparity. At one end, we have Amancio Ortega, the founder of Zara, who is currently number 5 on Forbes' rich list. While at the other end, you have garment workers who in many countries around the world are not even earning a minimum wage, let alone a living wage. Fashion also wreaks havoc on the environment. Approximately 8% of global carbon emissions come from fashion and textiles industry, which is more than shipping and aviation combined. It's estimated approximately 20% of industrial water pollution comes from the dyeing and finishing of textiles. And conventionally produced materials fuel deforestation, erode soil biodiversity and natural habitats. And our clothes are the #1 source of microplastics in our oceans. Though many are taking steps to reduce these impacts, much more needs to be done, much more widely across the industry. Then we have waste. According to the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, less than 15% of the clothes that we produce every year are reused, and less than 1% of these are recycled into new textiles. The vast majority of the garments and textiles simply end up in landfill, often in countries far away from ours, representing a lost economic opportunity to the tune of $500 billion. And these environmental impacts are only half the story. Since the 90s, much of the work of making our clothes has been outsourced to developing countries where the cost of labour is artificially low. Rana Plaza was a wake-up call for the industry. Over 1,134 garment workers making garments for big global fashion brands were killed and thousands more injured when the Rana Plaza factory complex in Dhaka, Bangladesh collapsed on April 24th, 2013. While we have seen a lot of positive change since that time and conditions have improved, it's really not enough, and human rights abuses, modern slavery and poverty level wages are still rife across the industry. So how did we get here? Since the year 2000, approximately clothing production has doubled. At the same time, the average number of times a garment is worn has decreased by 40%. The mass production and commercialisation of clothing has led to a decline in quality and price, so much that we now consider our clothes disposable. The scale that we're producing and consuming is just not able to be sustained. 80% of a garment's impact is actually locked in at the design stage, so we need to design for better outcomes right from the beginning. Design for longevity, for disassembly, for recycling and reuse, to use waste as a resource. And we need to ensure fair and equitable relationships throughout our supply chains. How can fashion have a positive impact on people and the environment? We are seeing this evolve in a number of different ways, from sustainable leaders to new business models and materials. Leaders such as Koto, Patagonia, Eileen Fisher and Veja, to name just a few, are examples of these. Many of them are certified B Corps, a movement where businesses are accountable for positive social and environmental outcomes. Some are investing in regenerative agriculture, environmental stewardship and fair trade. You can see the example here of Allbirds with their carbon neutral footwear made from natural materials, or Adidas, who have invested in a startup pilot program with Evernew, creating an infinite hoodie which can be recycled at the end of its life and is made from recycled materials. Product stewardship is also a key consideration for brands. As Holly was saying earlier, Nudie Denim is a great example. They take responsibility for the full life cycle of their products with repair stations in stores. They resell used jeans and they recycle all the denim that is no longer wearable from their customers into new products. Eileen Fisher is another excellent example of this. Then we have new business models. New models emerging such as social enterprises, cooperatives, clothing as a service, customization, made to order, resale. Nisa in Wellington is a social enterprise that makes organic cotton underwear, while at the same time training and employing women from refugee backgrounds. While Bethany Williams in the UK uses only waste for her collections from the textile industry and works with social enterprises in Italy and London to produce her menswear collections. Materials are also being developed in labs as a way to avoid the impact of virgin materials. This prototype bag is made from mycelium, the base structure of mushrooms grown specifically to purpose. In the last 2 years, we've also seen a rapid rise in resale, swapping and rental, which is helping us keep our clothing in use for longer. In fact, resale has grown 21 times faster than the retail apparel market over the past 3 years and is expected to overtake fast fashion by 2028. I hope that's given you all an understanding of the challenges and some of the innovations that are happening in the fashion industry and shown some of what the future could look like. I urge you to be curious, ask questions, and support brands that are trying hard to make a difference and imagine a better future for our clothes. Don't think of yourself as a consumer. We're all citizens of the world and every action that we take has power to make change. So what change do you want to see? So thanks for that, everybody. I am now going to introduce you to our next speaker, Meggie Hewlett, the founder of Maggie Marilyn. Founded in 2016, the Maggie Marilyn brand embodies sustainability, with all textiles being ethically sourced or recycled. Sustainability is an inbuilt mindset, a culture and a lifestyle. It's at the very heart of the company. Welcome, Maggie. Lovely to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for the introduction. And I will share my screen. Hopefully this works. Can everyone see my screen? Cool. So, yeah, thanks for the introduction, Jacinta. So, yeah, we launched Maggie Marilyn 4 years ago, and it's been quite the journey. I think building a brand that has sustainable practices and a sustainable philosophy is definitely a journey. There's no destination, that's for sure. We're always learning, and yeah, we really think that knowledge is power, and yeah, there's lots more that we have to achieve, that's for sure. So by no means are we perfect, but I'll talk you through our mission. So I founded Maggie Marilyn with a simple mission to make a difference in an industry that I really believed was ready for change. Why won't it let me change? Sorry. Ooh. Hello? Sorry, I don't know why it's not letting me change from there, so I'm just going to have to do it like this. And so, where was I? So we believe that fashion should operate with people and the planet at the forefront of every decision. Our mission is to create a transparent, circular fashion system that ultimately has a regenerative impact. We will leave the world a better place than we inherited it. And our promises to our customer and to our key stakeholders and the environment is that we will respect people and the planet always, challenge the status quo and redefine the norm, always be transparent, educate our community so they can make empowered decisions, retain a hunger to learn, knowledge is power, and find strength in being vulnerable. So on our website, we kind of break things down into people, planet, and prosperity. So firstly, I'll talk about what we do within the people space. So Made in NZ is really a cornerstone of Meggie Marilyn to manufacture in New Zealand. We hold dear the close relationships we have with our makers. We feel really passionate about supporting our manufacturers and helping to revitalise the New Zealand manufacturing industry. We also were set to begin auditing our factories earlier this year, but due to the current situation, we've had to push that back as our borders are closed, so our auditors can't come in. So we've pushed it back till September. And here is just an example of like how close our factories are to our head office in Auckland. You know, one factory is within walking distance, so yeah, it's really special. Our suppliers, we work with local family-run New Zealand fabric importers, as well as working directly with local and international fabric mills. Our main supply points are New Zealand, Italy, China, India, and Turkey. So we also have a supplier code of conduct that we launched with our strategy at the beginning of last year, that we ask all of our makers and suppliers to sign, which really outlines, you know, the standards that we expect from our suppliers, including animal welfare, environmental management, chemical and water use, greenhouse gas emissions, living wages, working conditions, waste management, and more. And then to talk a bit about what we do in terms of protecting the planet, selecting our raw materials is a really careful and considered part of our research and development process to ensure that they're being made in a way that is kind to people and the planet. It's really as simple as that for us. Some of our fabric commitments that are in our sustainability strategy that we want to tick off by the end of 2020 are to remove virgin sourced synthetic fibers from our supply chain, which we've actually achieved. We just released our sustainability strategy update a couple of weeks ago, so that's something we feel really excited about. And to use more recycled natural fibers, a minimum of 30%, to use repurposed materials, a minimum of 20% in each collection. And this was in our season 10 collection, we're at 28%. So this is something that we feel really proud of. And to establish responsible chemical use in our supply chain, and responsible water usage in our supply chain. And also over the past 6 months, we've been calculating our carbon emissions, which I'm really lucky. I have the most incredible team, and it has been no mean feat figuring out how to measure our carbon emissions. So we've been working with Toitu and EnviroCare, and they've been amazing. And so we had our audit in April. And so after that audit, we set out a carbon reduction plan, and then we will offset what we can't reduce through Toitu to become a certified carbon neutral company. And so something else that we have invested, significant time in researching and educating our customers on the impact of microplastics. Through our various channels, we share resources on how to wash recycled polyester clothing to avoid the release of microplastic particles into the waterways. We now also sell guppy bags on our website, which we actually sell quite a lot of, which is really exciting that our customers do care. And so in terms of chemicals, we're really committed to restricting the use of hazardous chemicals in our supply chain. We're in the process of establishing a monitored restricted substance list to ensure zero use of legally banned chemicals and restricted use of potentially harmful substances in all of our clothes. Many of our fabric mills already, though, have certifications such as Global Organic Textile Standard, OkioText, and Blue Sign. So we really rely on these certifications to uphold our values within this space. So packaging is obviously a big one and probably something that is largely forgotten about, as we just usually think about, the product that we create in fashion. But we ship our wholesale collections in fully biodegradable bags made from root starch, vegetable oil, and vegetable polymer. And these bags are able to decompose back into nature and dissolve in water. And then also something on our website, we really think education is so important. So we talk about, how to teach people to value their clothing, and how to look after their clothing, to expand the lifetime. I mean, that's our goal really, is to make sure that our garments are with our customers for as long as possible. And we really believe that, your garments should make your heart sing, and they should live with us through a lifetime of treasured memories. So lastly, prosperity. Community is everything to us. It's why we manufacture in New Zealand, and why we feel so strongly about giving back to our wider whānau, and why we are proud to call New Zealand our home. So we work with Sweet Charity, and we've had a long-term partnership with them. They're an Auckland-based charity who we offer ongoing support. Sweet Charity is a collaboration between two invaluable non-for-profit organisations, the Grief Centre and Supporting Families in Mental Illness. Both are dedicated to helping New Zealanders through times of crisis and building stronger, more resilient communities. And here's a picture of a collab that we did with an artist friend of mine, Billy Cooley. She's incredibly talented, where we donated 100% of the profits of these t-shirts to Sweet Charity last year. Also this year, we've begun doing community events. We launched free fortnightly community events. These range from yoga, mindfulness, to poetry, Pilates, and quiz nights. In a world where, we're more digitally connected than ever, it's easy to feel disconnected. So we wanted to create a space where like-minded people could come to learn, laugh, and connect. And then we also talk about progress, not perfection, because as proud as we are of everything that we've achieved this far, we're the first to point out that we're definitely not perfect. We have many goals to achieve, and many challenges that we need to find solutions for. We talk about systemic change. For decades, the fashion industry has operated a make, take, dispose, linear economic model. And we really believe that this model is intrinsically flawed. It operates without the fair treatment of people and the planet at its core, without transparency, and with closed doors and secrecy being the status quo. We're here to do things differently and aim to lead the way to a transparent and regenerative industry. And finally, transparency. We really want to help you understand how many hands have touched each piece of clothing that you buy. Transparency is incredibly important to us. On our website, we share details of all of our makers, suppliers, so I encourage you to check it out. We also provide this information beside every garment on our online store. We also send out regular newsletters and have details on our fabrics and makers. we run a fortnightly Instagram series where we answer any questions that our followers may have with regards to business operations and sustainability goals. So we really encourage you to challenge us and to continue amplifying the conversation of sustainability and fashion. Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Maggie. Great to hear from you. I'd now like to introduce Angela Means. Angela is a stylist and vintage clothing curator through her outlet Greatest Friend. Angela was one of the first vintage sellers featured on the now global shopping platform Etsy. In a first for New Zealand Fashion Week, Greatest Friend, her Onaroa-based clothing store, showed an entirely vintage collection. Angela is passionate about the power of used clothing to turn people away from fast fashion. Over to you, Angela.
Thank you, Jacinta. And hi, everyone. Happy Friday night. This is my first social outing in a while. So I come from a really grassroots fashion background, and I say it that way because, well, I guess my approach is very underground, but very organic. I'm approaching 50, not that age is anything, but all of my knowledge comes from basic experience and common sense and a love for our planet. And I feel really blessed to be a Kiwi because I think that was something that we were born with. I'm really curious as to who's watching and who's out there because I think that I appeal to a lower income bracket. I am an overwhelm about this topic myself. There is just so much stuff out there. And for me, I love the thrill of the hunt. I love an op shop. A lot of people can't do it, and I get that because they work all day long or just feel overwhelmed by the different sizes. I could talk for hours about that. It's difficult. So if you're sitting there and kind of struggling with, wow, I find all this fascinating, I want to know more about it, but how do I buy something that doesn't have a bad impact? Secondhand is definitely your first port of call. So these are my tips, I guess. Clothing swaps is number one. There is no impact. The only thing that's going to happen there is you're going to have fun. So getting a social event together around a clothing swap is just so cool. I mean, I struggled with staying in fashion. I went from fashion to music to fashion because I didn't feel it was very humanitarian, but it's such a good communicator. We can really get together no matter who we are. And have amazing conversations, and that's why I actually chose a storefront rather than an online store to meet and talk to people of all different shapes and sizes and colours and creeds and sexes, etc. Truly, that's what drives Greatest Friend, and then also the circular economy model. So setting up clothing swaps, I think, is number one, definitely. I don't want to talk over time, and I've got lots of points to make. So what keeps coming up in my mind is I think in New Zealand we need to have more of a streamline around secondhand, and we definitely need more collaboration. I want to see simple structure in place that makes it really easy for people who want to buy clothes. So then there's recycling your own wardrobe, going through it, finding friends who mend, learn how to mend. If it's not your thing, don't feel bad. Support your local alterations place. Get into that. Put some music on and cut something up if you feel like it. Just make it last longer. Have fun. Give stuff away, share stuff, ask for stuff. We just started a platform on Facebook on Waiheke, and it's called OpSwap. No money's going to change hands, and there's tons of stuff flying around. Support New Zealand designers. It was really, really great to hear Maggie talk. There's so much work involved in doing things right today in the fashion industry. So when people are doing things right, put a little savings account aside, put your $5 a week in, and go and put the money down for a decent, beautiful garment that you can keep. And it will actually gain value because these things become collectible. They're not overproduced. They're very special, as with a lot of good vintage. I don't think all of the Instagram selling and Depop selling of secondhand clothing is going to solve our issue. We definitely have an overflow. And the other thing, not a horse, an elephant in the room, is consumerism. So buying stuff is a big issue. I got incredible reverse culture shock coming home to New Zealand after living in the US 17 years. I couldn't believe the amount of stuff we have here, and poor quality stuff. I think it's urgent to stop importing any synthetics, because those microfibers are going to destroy our soil, and that will mean that we won't have any food security. And that sounds really heavy, but look at what dairy farming has done to our waterways. So yeah, synthetics just need to go. I think importing into New Zealand, what we're bringing in at this stage, is just way too much. We're trying to keep up with the consumer model that's global, and we're tiny. And we have a lot of stuff here. So I'd love to see more regenerative practices come through. I'm excited for the future of a lot of industries in New Zealand, but I do think the amount that we look overseas is not really helping things. We have to sort of just look at what we've got here and use what we've got here, our resources here. So support New Zealand designers. Oh yes, of course, find yourself an experienced vintage reseller. I can sell you a pair of jeans over the phone that will fit you for life. There's my plug for myself. But there's a lot of people reselling right now, and you know, women or people will come into the store and they'll be like, oh, this is how much, and I can buy that on Instagram for whatever. But if you keep a notebook on what you're spending over a year and how many things you buy online that just don't fit, and those quick impulse buys at $50, as opposed to, you know, really giving a thoughtful purchase that it's a bit more expensive, you'll find that you're actually saving money. So I don't know if, I think that the secondhand market in New Zealand looks very consumer driven and not necessarily is backed up by a lot of experience or quality in the product, because the op shops here are full of synthetics and what have you. But keeping it out of landfill is good. And if we could get more collaboration, like imagine if there was a place in Auckland and a place in Wellington, and everywhere you are and you know other people who love to resell and love fashion, get together, host clothing swaps, get one studio where everybody can shoot for their online platform, or get some markets going and work together and don't feel afraid of competition or not being good enough or not being confident. I have a total confidence issue, and I understand where that can come from. So yeah, I think there's a lot of work to be done, but I do definitely endorse secondhand. Last thing that I'll say, I've got all these notes here and I just rave on like a lunatic sometimes, but there are also New Zealand secondhand dealers or vintage dealers importing from the USA, and they're bringing in bales as textile waste. And this is a fact because I lived in the US and I could show you photos of all the waste I've seen. And America is doing a great job at expelling their waste to countries like us. And so there's a couple of stores that I won't name, but I can smell it on the clothing. And I also know from suppliers in the US who I deal with directly that they're bringing in bales. And what this means is they're bringing it in as textile waste. So they're not paying the appropriate taxes. And they're also bringing in near on a ton of actual waste that goes straight to our landfill. They can only sell a portion of it because if you want the good Levi's, you got to take the crap, which goes to the landfill. So I want to see some laws change around importing, and I'm really all for that circular economy in New Zealand and using our resources. Clothing swaps, that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. And I just want to remind everyone, please, if you have questions for a specific person, to put their name in it, in the question, so that we can direct it to the right person. And lastly, we're going to hear from Kate Hall. Kate Hall is a fashion activist through her platform Ethically Kate. She lives and breathes sustainable living and ethical fashion. This alternative way of consuming and existing dominates her every waking moment, and sometimes more. Ethical fashion and living are no longer her hobbies. They have become her mission to change the future of fast fashion and the way that we consume. Welcome, Kate.
Hey, thanks, Jacinta. It's awesome to be here. It's a shame that we're not all in person and we can't all, I don't know, be together physically and give each other hugs. But this is awesome. This is really cool. Welcome, everyone. I want to first start by telling you a little bit about why I am Ethically Kate, or how kind of my journey began. I have always loved fashion. I was that kid who would apparently, when I was much younger, strip off my clothes and get another outfit on and change probably 8 times a day, just because I loved expressing myself in so many different ways depending on my mood. And fashion has always been, to this day, something that I really love and think is so underrated in its power. When probably in August 2015, I watched the documentary The True Cost, which a lot of you have seen. I don't think it's available for free on Netflix anymore, but I would recommend you do watch The True Cost if you haven't seen it. So I watched that with friends in a living room, and literally a light bulb went off, and I was like, I can't do this. I can't love and enjoy fashion or be part of this problem and still consider myself a kind and a caring person, if I'm gonna continue to buy clothes where I don't know where they've come from, who's made them, how they've been treated. So literally it was kind of I don't know if anyone else has had a light bulb moment in your life, but that was it for me. My upbringing around sustainable values and everything just fell into place, and then I couldn't shut up about it. I love communicating and talking. I'm a big extrovert, and I just felt it was a huge injustice for my friends and family and people out there to not know, for me to not tell them that this was an issue. So anyway, that is how I came to do what I do today. I'm constantly have the privilege to work with so many different ethical and sustainable fashion companies, both in New Zealand, and people who produce in all parts of the world, and look after our global community as well as our local community. So I'm able to see the ins and outs of businesses. I learn so much every day, but I also work directly with the consumers. It's quite a harsh term to call you, but that's us, the people who wear clothes. So I have the privilege of getting to know how people interact, purchase their clothes, and how they think about the fashion industry too, which I love. I try my best to have an impact on businesses, people, and the government, but because I think that's how we're going to make change, but I particularly love working with individuals and letting everyone know that they have a voice, particularly if you're privileged enough to be in a country like New Zealand and have a lot at our fingertips. It's an injustice for the people who don't have a voice if we don't speak up for them. So I wanted to explain a little bit about how you can do that. I literally still think of myself as just a raving passionate person about ethical fashion who happens to now know a lot because I was just inquisitive and I asked, and I became an active consumer rather than a passive consumer who thought that all the big brands were just too big to care about answering my emails or to care about interacting with me. So there's a lot to say, and if you have any questions even after this, you can contact me on Instagram, but I want to go over a few things when you're choosing the clothes that you are going to purchase. One of the first things I think about, and one of the first things I recommend to people, which also helps to consume less, is to do your research first. So it's been mentioned a lot already that consumerism and over-consuming is a really, really big issue. That's why I kind of do the reverse of a salesperson online when I'm like, oh, this is a great ethical fashion company, but only buy it if you need it, because at the end of the day it's just more stuff if you're not going to actually use it, and it's just going to be quite disrespectful to the garment if you don't wear it. So anyway, first thing, do your research before you buy anything. Make sure you know enough about it to feel in yourself that you are okay with that purchase, and that will be different for everyone. You may have vegan values and you may have locally produced values, totally different to me, totally different to the person next to you, but do your research, and that will actually mean that you stop instant random pointless purchases as well. So if you have your own kind of, you know, your own code of ethics. For me, I think about something for at least a month before I purchase it, and honestly, most of the time it like will go out of my mind. I won't remember it. But if it pops back up in my mind, then I know it's something that I, you know, may be missing, or something I will properly treasure and wear for many, many years. So do your research. There's a phrase that is seed to garment. You may have heard of that before. Seed to garment means looking at something, how it's been made from when it was grown. So say it's cotton, if it's, you know, grown on a plant or whatever that material is, to garment to hang in your wardrobe. So ask questions about each step of that supply chain. There are so many hands that touch your piece of clothing before they get to your wardrobe. So consider how each of those people were treated. I know it's a big thing to ask, a big thing to look into and to dive into, and sometimes you won't find the exact questions that you want from the brands, but honestly, people often refrain from contacting brands because they think that they're just not going to answer, or they're not going to have the time, or they don't care, but they exist to offer you clothes. They exist for you. You are their demand, so they will listen to you, I promise. So do your research, look at a garment from seed to garment, look at the brand holistically. So there's some companies who have conscious collections, or they say, oh, we're donating to this charity, or we're doing that, and it may pop up on your radar and you're like, oh wow, that's really awesome. But literally Google, see what the media have had to say about them. Obviously we can't trust a lot of media sources, but see what they are like as holistically as a business. Are they supporting this charity one week but then doing something else bad the other week? Look at them holistically, and also don't hold them to perfection. I'm rushing through these points, but don't hold them to perfection. The reason when I choose a company, when I'm assessing if I'm going to work with them personally as a blogger, I will ask them a whole lot of questions, and I will not expect them to reply perfect to everyone, as long as they reply honestly and transparently, because no one's perfect. This whole ethical fashion industry and figuring out how we can create fashion in the best way possible is still evolving. Technology is still evolving. So as long as the brand will answer honestly and truthfully, rather than say, we're the best company in the world. So I think just have some common sense about it, and think of brands more personally than I think a lot of passive consumers do. So I know we want to get to a Q&A, and we can chat about a lot of things there. And like I said, if you want to talk about things, I'm on Instagram at ethicallykate. But I hope there was a little burst of insight into how you as a consumer can have some really big impact. Obviously, it's not going to just be the consumer who makes the change. There needs to be policy, businesses leading the way too, but we're the people who are the demand for clothes, so we can have some really big impact. So thanks, thanks for listening to my ramblings, and we'll head into Q&A and the rest of it.
Thanks everybody. So I think we're going to get all the speakers back up now on the screen, and we will roll into the Q&A. We've got a huge volume of questions have come in, so we'll try and get through a few of them. There's quite a few double ups, so we'll try and make them a little bit more concise and get through what we can. The first one really is a question for all of the panel. So the question is, how do you think we can best educate our society and consumers about sustainable living and buying combating the inviting edge of fast fashion pricing, i.e. how do we kind of try and tempt people away from that quick fix with the cheap fast fashion item. So perhaps if we start with you, Maggie, and then we'll move to you, Kate, and then Angela.
So I'm big on education. I think that for customers, you know, you don't know what you don't know. And for me, how I got into this was really, you know, at university, a very unglamorous curtain being pulled back and realizing what our industry is responsible for. So I think we really try to educate our customer on not only responsible consumption, but you know, the negative effects that fashion has not only on the environment, but people involved in the supply chain. And so, yeah, I think education is key, really. That's where it all starts. Yeah.
I think educating in a positive way, I've always, which I totally agree that it's key, is particularly actually when you already have, you know, when you're a brand educating. I think that's so powerful, and I love it when people like you, Maggie, pair that together, because you're not just offering a product, you're actually offering a mindset change and education around why you would buy this product. Yeah. I think the positive education, I'm reading a book called Psychology for a Better World at the moment, and no one's going to change if they are angry or mad or upset or are financially not okay or are unhealthy or have other stuff. No one's actually just going to want to listen or change. So I think everything ties in together around wellness and just like keeping a positive education rather than obviously we shouldn't put our heads under the rug, but we need to, rather than just focus on, oh, this is so big and so heavy, like you feel after watching some of these documentaries, just being positive and being like, hey, look, you can buy clothes here, you can buy clothes here, like this is what an awesome world could look like, and really activating people that way, and educating, yeah, like that.
Totally.
Thanks. Angela, anything to add?
Yeah, there's just too much pressure. I think everybody needs to just take the pressure off, and just you know, if you need a quick fix, just go to the op shop. You know, just don't go to big brand fast fashion. Just don't. Just don't. If you know that much and you're here, just don't do it.
Yeah.
Good. We can end it now.
You'll feel great, and also let's start getting some individuality into our wardrobes again. We've got a world to change a lot more about, and if you want to feel empowered, it's not going to be in.
Great, yeah, and I would just add to that, agreeing with what you say, Angela, that lead by example. If you're here, you already believe in it, so show people around you how you do it, and because people don't want to hear the negative and the statistics, they want to see how good it is, so lead by example. Question for you, Kate. What are some examples of questions that you typically ask brands before working with them or as you're vetting them?
Yep, so I have a list on my blog with all these actually, just so people can use it as a template to send. But I ask, depends obviously on the product, but I ask them things like, when I'm done with the garment, because obviously it can last, you know, hundreds of years, but what happens at the end of its life? Where is it going to go? So then they answer with things like repair systems or the fabric it's made from, and how. I basically ask, how can it be kept in our resource loop? I ask how people are treated, including pay and the conditions of their working standards, and also how they ensure that, rather than just what it is, how they ensure it, meaning I want certifications, I want guarantee, and I want you to tell me the usual, we have a lovely close working relationship with our factory, because I need, you know, more, I need to know that, like, yeah. So I ask about the sustainability, but also the ethics. I ask how it's going to be shipped, if they offset their shipping, what they where they ship to, and shipping costs and things too, because sometimes that can be kind of extravagant, or they haven't thought about how, you know, where things go. Yeah, those are kind of some of the main questions I ask, particularly yeah, I don't, some of them haven't thought of some of the questions I asked, which is really interesting. But I look for answers that are, I don't know that question, I'll have to look into that for you, rather than the standard answers you get, which, yeah, no, overwhelming. So, but yeah, all of the questions I ask are on the blog, but those are just a few.
Great, thank you. And I think we'll share everybody's websites and blog details, because some comments have come through about that in the questions, so that people can follow up on that information. Maggie, a question for you around materials. Actually, there's a couple that I'll tie together. One is, what is your thought on the GOTS standard? And does organic fabric mean organic in New Zealand? Basically, can you sort of clarify that knowledge around the GOTS standard? And then another question around synthetic fibres, and what does a virgin synthetic fibre, what does that actually mean?
Sure. So yeah, for us, it's really important to rely on third-party certifications such as Global Organic Textile Standards to ensure that the cotton that we're getting is in fact organic. But you know, we do take it further than just trusting in a piece of paper. We trace our supply chain right back to where the cotton is grown, and working back up through the supply chain with everyone that's involved. So yeah, we rely on certifications, but we also do our own traceability checks, if that makes sense. That's really important to us, because we're also working on implementing regenerative sorry, shouldn't talk in lingo, regenerative agriculture into how our farmers work. We're a long way off our cotton being regeneratively farmed, but that's something I feel really passionate about. And then so yeah, there's not really like a standard as such for organic cotton in New Zealand. We really just rely on Global Organic Textile Standard. That, to us, from the research that we've done, seems to be the best. And then in terms of what is virgin synthetic fibres, yeah, sorry about the lingo. So basically that means any synthetics that don't come from a source that's already within the system. So polyester is petroleum. It comes through drilling into the ground, which we all know comes from a very finite resource that is absolutely not sustainable. But synthetic fabrics, there's a lot of benefits in using synthetic fabrics in terms of they can be infinitely recycled, and we have all this waste that just exists within the current system, from, you know, plastic bottles, you know, plastic waste that's in the ocean, fish nets, all these sorts of things. So we see so much value in taking that waste and turning it into something new and beautiful. So yeah, hopefully that answers the questions.
Great, thank you. And I think also synthetic fibres have excellent functionality attributes, which mean that they're fit for purpose for a number of activities that natural fibres really aren't. So
totally,
considering the product is also really important in that fabric decision. And Angela, a question here. What advice would you give? Where would be the best place to take leftovers after a clothes swap? Is there a better place than the closest op shop? Do you have any advice on that?
I had some notes about that because I'm in a bit of overwhelm about that. Not really. I think the issue is, and I've got this reverse culture shock, and I'm proud of being a Kiwi, but I'm really struggling here because we are not collaborating. I'm on a small island, there's 3 op shops, they don't talk to each other. I've gone to all of them and said, what do you do with your waste? I know how much is going into the landfill. We need to, what I saw in the US is a model that worked. It's kind of digressing from the topic, but there's no answer right now. You do a clothing swap, you've got to hang on to it. Don't donate it. It's a tough one. If it's good quality, just hang on to it. If it's if it's crap, hang on to it because you don't want it to go to landfill. But it's strange because we need an education for people who run our op shops in New Zealand, because there are a lot of volunteers involved and they're not educated on fashion, and they're looking at something like a Glasson's label and going, oh, people want that, so I'll put it on the rack. And then they're looking at a 70s dress with a broken zip and a stain on it and going, I'm going to landfill that. And I'm like, I'll fix it. You know, I'll fix it and bring it back to life. And so there's a real problem around that. There's just too much going to landfill from our op shops, and they need to take some responsibility and start educating within.
And in fact, they're spending thousands and thousands of dollars sending the clothing that we take to them to landfill because they can't sell it. So that is, you know, the reverse of what people are actually trying to achieve by donating, I think, which is a really important point. Kate, did you want to add something to that?
I think also we don't have a good enough op shop etiquette in terms of that, you know, the dress that's donated with the broken zip was because someone gave it to the op shop because they didn't want to fix it. So I like to treat, I actually try to find enough people to give my clothes to if they're no longer of use to me. But if I am donating, I make sure it's literally something that I would like put out in Angela's shop, do you know what I mean? Like something that it is fully repaired, it's washed and it's ready to go, because also they don't have the resources at secondhand shops to wash things often. So yeah, I think working on our op shop etiquette could help the system as well.
That's a really, really good point. And all the dreams and ideas I have, but I've only been back 3 years, so I don't have the social currency to implement them. But we could be making furniture out of all of these. If your clothes are busted from the clothing swap, let's shred them up and make an awesome big 70s divan, you know, like let's get going.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So there's a quite sorry, Angela.
There's just a lot that can be done, and I'm not really into this like whole, there's so many new clothing brands coming out. Like this COVID, my Instagram feed is full of new sustainable clothing brands in New Zealand, and I'm like, support the ones that are here and use completely recycled fabrics, or just don't do it. Make some knickers. Make some socks.
Yeah.
But,
so there's one last question here. I think we'll have time for one last question. It really relates to how can we make sustainable fashion affordable. So the comment is that, you know, it is at a certain level of the market, and we understand that there are costs involved in doing that, and so that is the reality of it. But how can people participate in sustainable fashion without having to buy cheap and nasty clothing? So perhaps if all of you want to share your thoughts on that, and we'll make that the final question because we're coming up to time. So Maggie, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I think that it depends on, you know, what you think affordable is. If affordable is a $20 t-shirt, then your best bet is buying that from an op shop, because you cannot produce a t-shirt that everyone in the supply chain has been treated fairly and ethically, and that you haven't had a negative impact on the environment for $20. That just, in my opinion, no matter how many t-shirts you're making, that's impossible. So we talk about affordability quite a lot as a brand, because it's definitely something that I'm conscious of. You know, I don't believe that sustainability should be a luxury. I believe it's something that everyone should be able to buy into their values. So I think that for us, we try to, create the best product whereby our customers getting the best value for their money, whilst ensuring that everyone in our supply chain is empowered, and we're hopefully eventually having a regenerative impact on the environment. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And Kate?
Yeah, I think it is, it's all of what we're talking about is a mindset shift. Like I felt that dramatically. And even though I was never like an excessive shopper, I'd always thought op shops are cool rather than cringy or for people who don't have enough money, you know. I always thought they were just awesome. So for me, even though it was a light bulb moment, it's just for everyone, it's a mindset shift. So I believe ethical fashion can be more cost effective, more affordable if you're actually embracing the mindset slow fashion. So if you think about cost per wear, so for people who like, you know, statistics and working those things out too, and you work out how many times you're going to wear a garment, you can work out cost per wear, and it can actually be, you know, more affordable in the long run if you actually embrace the slow fashion mindset. Though I'm also very conscious that some people don't have the ability to invest in something upfront in terms of living week by week, that can be unaffordable. So I think it's definitely a big issue when we talk about all these things. I think to the people who genuinely can only is just totally out of their budget, I think fashion is tied into all sorts of economic issues. So everything will have to, you know, change at once. But like Maggie said, op shops are there, and we should just think if we can, you know, afford it, change our mindset, cost per wear, and then it actually works really well from my experience.
If you love fashion and you're in a low income, give yourself the treat you deserve and put $5 away a week, and at the end of the year buy something from your favorite designer and do the clothing swaps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much to all my fellow speakers for sharing your knowledge, your insights, and inspiring myself and the rest of the audience. Yeah, I think it's been a great night. There was a lot more questions that we couldn't get to. I'm really sorry for that, but we will try and send out in the follow-up email, we'll send out a whole list of resources. There's some incredible books and online courses that you can participate in if you want to learn more, and also the contact details for the people that are speaking tonight, or their websites. So yeah, thanks everybody, and we'll pass it back over to you, Holly.
Awesome, thanks Jacinta, and yes, thank you again to all of our amazing panelists, Kate, Angela and Maggie. An amazing hour of some great discussion and insights, so thanks again for sharing those and giving up your Friday evening. But also thank you to everyone that tuned in and participating by sending in questions. We got so many, so I'm sorry we couldn't answer them all, but we do hope you learned a thing or two tonight. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your evening and your weekend. And if you've got any questions about this event or SBN's work or anything else, do get in touch with us or feel free to flick me an email. I'm holly@sustainable.org.nz. So yes, thanks all. We'll see you later.
Cool. Thanks so much. Bye everyone.